Yes, you would have seen this tree has been trimmed. I've had 3 trees trimmed yesterday in the garden, and again, because we're working on a budget, there are certain things that you might have to do as well as. So the guy that cut this for me, he just cut up the branches. So this is what I am faced with this morning. You see all these pods, all the seeds that are contained in here. I've put some in bags. Now I'm sure there's something you can do with it. I looked at, I was doing some research, and it said that the young shoots, one of the things that I read said the young shoots and the seeds are edible. You'd have to boil them. And then I looked again and found conflicting information. The leaves, what I do with the leaves is I use it for the paths because they dry out quite nicely and they change colour. They go a pale colour, but they add quite a covering to like the muddy paths, which is where Cole will run and try and bring it into the house. So, oh my gosh, I forgot to look at my mango tree. When he cut it, it just, you heard a crack and then a just like that. So I've got a mango tree at the end. I'm just hoping that it wasn't affected. Anyway, yeah, so using it on the paths, but there are hundreds of these pods. I've seen a few artists here use the pods in their art installations. So there may be an artist who wants all of these pods, and then they can be reused. The wood is quite, I wouldn't say it's a soft wood. It is, but it's easy to cut, I've found, and so I don't use it in like along the paths. Like, so in places along the paths, like there, I'm sitting down. It's just like I'm tired now. So I'd use it as sort of like a border to keep in some of the, when I do chop and drop and it keeps them in. This is not a typical, but I use the river tamarind tree. That's better. The wood is harder. I find that a lot better for that. And it also decomposes quite quickly, it rots quite quickly. So what I'm thinking of doing is, if I can cut up sections of these larger branches and dry them out properly, then I can use them in the studio. And I'm also thinking of when I repair, oh my gosh, do you want to see it? We had loads of rain yesterday and my terrace stairs the marl I placed on it has been washed away. Do you want to come and have a look? So this is how it looks now. There's supposed to be 3 stairs but that's a job for another day. So it's kind of held up. I've done a better video, the rocks and stuff, so I need to put another layer of rocks. I'm going to raise it up. We're still quite about 5 inches lower than my neighbours, so I'm going to raise this up and reinforce the sides with larger rocks, so that and then intersperse that with the smaller rocks and gravel, so that the marl, when it's put on it, it's not gonna run off, but also get on with putting either the tiles. I've got these terracotta pieces that I'm thinking of using. I've got loads of them, so hopefully I've got enough to cover these 3 areas. Anyway, let's get back to the shack. That rhyme. Let's get back to the shack. Okay, so the other thing we've got here is the new growth of my mahogany tree, and most of it is just like this. It's no real limbs, So within the next 6 months it's going to need a trim again. Let's have a look at that. So he trimmed the top leaves. What I probably would have done if it was me was to trim these limbs here, because this is my studio here and it blocks out all of the light. But yeah, just trim it so that it's a bit more manageable and that I can potentially, I've got a long armed saw, so I could, get to some of these leaves. Again, it grows quite quickly. In about 6 months this will all grow back. My male papaya tree was damaged as the pieces fell, but not my female with the fruit. Okay, let's get back. 3, 2, 1, we're back in the room. Okay, yeah, so he's neatly piled them up into 3 mounds. We've got one at the back over there, we've got this one, we've got one over here by the well, and then this one here, which I think is most likely the mahogany. So yeah, what it's meant is that I can take the branches here. What I do is use the leaves on the beds, and so that's chop and drop. That changes, the leaves of the mahogany tree go brown as they die down, and so it's going to look quite cool as they die down, and all of the let's take a walk. All of the beds, as you can see. So I've just covered the beds because when we get a dry spell, it's to help conserve the water. So I just keep it as covered as possible. I guess once a year I'm trimming the mahogany tree, so that gives the beds a good covering, and then I cover them with the Mexican sunflower, which I'd cut back and used earlier. That dies down really quickly, so I've cut all along here. It does need trimming again, but all around the garden I would have cut. And yeah, I wouldn't have, as I was saying, you're working on a tight budget, but sometimes you do need to, or no budget at all, and you do need to get help for certain things. I know that if I had I did attempt to do the mahogany. No, it's not the mahogany because I couldn't even reach it. The shack tree, and I just couldn't. It was just where I was going to cut it. It would have just been worse. But he actually got up the tree and started cutting the limbs, and you don't realise how much they have, how many leaves, how many, as I say, hundreds of these pods, and this tree is very heavy. So I guess I would have called it a semi-hard. But this particular limb, that's really heavy. But if you look at it, it's quite solid, and that would look really nice, in what I would use them for is like in my wall hangings. I make sculptural looms, so I do some weaving and use the wood as the frame, maybe jewelry, the larger bits. If you had again, I'm talking about the chainsaw, I could then cut it into circles, but we'll see. I think I wasn't sure that he was able to do it. I wanted it done, and we've now got it done, and this is the next task to be complete, to kind of clear all this up, because the leaves will start dying out, and they will just fall off the branches in place, and I don't want them here. So even if I can't, I'm not going to be able to do them all today. I'm not feeling 100%, so I'm going to have to just take a break, maybe fill up this bag of pods, and then what I can do is see if there's an artist who does outdoor installation or whatever that wants to use these, and then plan over the next 2 days. I would have said 2 days this needs to all be cleared, otherwise the leaves will drop in place and then I'll just have mounds of leaves. But yeah, there's probably about 4 bags full of these, black bags full of these pods, and it's a pity we hadn't got to it before it started producing pods, and then you wouldn't have had that issue. So that's another reason to try and keep your trees at a certain height. See that one back there, I'd kept it at a certain height and I missed cutting it, and so I need to address that, otherwise the pods are just going to fall to the floor. My neem tree, I need to cut that one as well. And then the same thing, what I would do is use it as chop and drop. The snails love the leaves for some reason, which I'm not encouraging, but I also use the leaves to make my own neem oil. I soak the leaves for a good few months in neem oil, and then that's what I use. And as well, it's beginning to grow, the seeds are beginning to come out, which I've got hundreds of baby neem trees, so I don't need any more. I remember when I didn't have any and I could just see my neighbours across there, right in the distance there, and I was like, oh, I want a neem tree. And when he was cutting back, I said, I got the branches that he was cutting back and I used it. That was the first thing I used, as chop and drop, when I didn't have anything. And I tried to grow the seeds and they didn't take, and I just kind of forgot about it, put some of the leaves around the mahogany tree, and then within a year I started seeing the little seedlings come up, and that's what this is from. This is I've got 2 I grew, so growing that myself, so I'm really proud. And that tree over there is a mother. And this one is and a grandmother, because this one has produced so many smaller trees that yeah, I'm gonna have to pot them up. Anyway, so this is the job at hand. I just want to encourage you that if there are big jobs that you have to do in your garden, then really try and break them down. I had also shared in my last post that, you know, sometimes you do need to ask for help, and if you've asked for help and it's not forthcoming from who you've asked, then you have to just, you know, sometimes you have to save up and say, okay, what's the priority out here? And I was blessed that the guy he cuts our grass and then he cut the trees, and you know, I was surprised at how much he charged us. But I guess, you know, he's not clearing anything away, so that's then, you know, the other side of it, which is just like, I don't mind, because now I've got what I wanted done. And as I say, I'm just gonna cut that. There's a little groove there where I started, and I need to cut that there so that I can then manage the tree as it's gonna start growing more leaves. I want to keep it a low shack tree. Birds can still build their nests in there and have fun, and the flowers will still grow and there'll still be pods there, but I want to keep it low. But yeah, so that's the job at hand, and I just want to encourage you. And it's just like anything in life, that, you know, you break it down, see what the tasks are, take it a step at a time, and even if you can't do everything at once, do something. So I said to myself when I was collecting, just fill up a bag. I don't have to do everything today. I don't have to collect every single pod you can see here, but let me fill up a bag, and then the next day I'll fill up another bag, and before you know it, they're all gone. because these are going to go brown and split open, and then all the seeds will disperse. So time is of an essence as well. But you know, you do as much as you can when you can. And again, ask for help if you need to. And I'm thinking about whether these leaves, whether I can create a dye from these leaves, because as I said, they go brown. And I've been also using the leaves in certain projects, like, you know, stitching the leaves and things like that. So that would be interesting. I mean, they're quite thin. Actually, but they're firm. Interesting. Yeah, that's a creative project. Right there. You see them? Okay, so, and I must see if from a cutting I can grow a mahogany tree, and I might grow it on the other side. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to leave it there. If you let me know how you're getting on and what you're doing, what challenges you're facing, and how you're dealing with it. And you stay blessed and be a blessing.